Hey guys, Al DeMarco here, and this is going to be your Friday video report. A 2-0 sweep again yesterday with complimentary plays, cashing in the Mountain West Tournament with Boise State and Colorado State. That's 10 out of 12 freebies in the bank since Saturday, and two more college comps coming your way in just a moment as I return to the scene of the crime, the Mountain West Tournament at Thomas and Mack here in Vegas for today's game between Boise and Wyoming, plus head to the ACC tournament in Greensboro for your contest between Virginia and North Carolina. Listen, all your promos, all your discounts, etc. can be found over the home page. Before I go any further, I want to talk baseball. Yes, baseball for just one moment. Listen, spring training is underway. We all know that. The regular season's going to be here in about 3 weeks or so. But I'm telling you now, just ignore spring training baseball at this particular point. I do. And you're taking it from a guy who has made more money in baseball than in any other sport, period, in my career, which started long before I became a professional handicapper. It is just the easiest sport to make money in, the easiest sport to gamble on, but it's also a sport that requires perseverance. Because let's face it, so many handicappers, let alone gamblers in this industry, take the summer off right after, in fact, March Madness is concluded because they just don't want to deal with the day in, day out drain and drag of baseball. It's the dog days of summer. I understand that, but I'm telling you, if you show the perseverance, if you stick with me or with the handicappers here at the site during the summer, you can make money. And there's nothing better than rolling into September for the NFL and college football's return than having a bankroll that you accumulated during, again, the dog days of summer. But right now in spring training, it's inconsequential. Listen, and I'm a guy who mentally logs every single pitcher's performance during the spring. But these games mean nothing for one simple reason. The majority of the players that the pitchers are facing right now, they're not even going to be in AAA, let alone the majors in a couple of weeks. Plus, most of your pitchers, their first couple of outings are working 2, 3, maybe 4 innings by their third turn in the rotation, and they're just working on things. Now, what I track is what happens with those starting pitchers when suddenly they're working 5 and 6 innings. Generally, they're third to last, they're second to last in their final tune-up outing of the spring. That's what matters the most because you're looking for the pitchers that are working on things, they're building momentum, and they're carrying the momentum into the regular season, and you're looking at how they accomplish what they do and what they accomplish in those final 3 starts against the bulk of major league hitters who are suddenly getting more than 2 bats a game, okay? So that's the key when it comes to spring training. But again, I'm just telling you guys, stick around. I know a lot of you take off after the Final Four, and okay, hey, that's your choice. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in the NBA playoffs, baseball as well, and I can only tell you, as you know, if you've stuck around the last couple summers, the discounts only increase as the weather warms up because, again, I just don't believe that you have to spend big money to make big money. And I realize that you guys that join me throughout the baseball season and the summer months, you are the die-hard gamblers. You're just like me. You're junkies. You like that action fix every bit as much as I do. So anyway, enough about baseball. Let's get to your college basketball complimentary plays. By the way, one thing about college hoops, this particular week of action, you've got all the college conference tournaments, right? The one thing that I can tell you that you should take from these games going into next week's tournament action, I'm not just talking about the big tournament, I'm talking about the NIT, the CBI, the CIT. If you have not followed a particular team, if you have not followed a particular conference, well, stay away from them. Just because they make the field of 64, stay away from them. It doesn't mean that you should be gambling on teams that you know nothing about. So, for example, you're not going to find me having any plays on teams from the MAAC or not even the Mid-American Conference, not the Southland Conference, none of these minor league rookie conferences that I haven't followed all season long. Why suddenly am I going to start telling you I'm an expert this week and next week on these particular teams? And if you have followed me throughout the season, you see that I found my niche early. And it changes on an annual basis where suddenly you just get a firm grasp on the teams and how they're playing day in, day out in particular conferences. When I think about how much money this year I won in the Horizon League and won you as well, how much money I won in the West Coast Conference, the Big West Conference, how few plays I had in the ACC other than North Carolina State a couple of nights ago over Pittsburgh. What was that? Maybe my 4th play in the ACC the entire season? And that's something that you have to carry forth going in again to next week's action. So it's already tough enough because everybody's playing on a neutral court and it's basically all non conference games. It's more than difficult enough to find those winners. But again, just don't be lured into saying, oh, Louisville's 18 points better than some team I never heard of from some conference I don't even know where they're from. Stay away from those games. Okay, let's talk about your complimentary plays. Yesterday, I used Boise State against Air Force. Well, Boise's going to have a little more difficult time today at Thomas and Mack against Wyoming, but I'm kind of surprised that this line, instead of going up, has actually dropped down to 4.5, and you can even find some 4s here against the Cowboys. Now, I understand why, because although Boise State rolled over Air Force yesterday as expected 80-68, they have won 15 out of 16 games. That is a streak that started right after they lost in Laramie, January 10th, in the season's only meeting between these contestants, 65-54. And it was a particularly bad game for Boise. Couldn't stop Wyoming offensively. And listen, the Cowboys are not that good of an offensive team, but they shot almost 54% in that game. Meanwhile, Boise shot just 40%. And Boise was just hammered on the boards, hammered down low. They had just 9 free throw attempts in the game, 16 for Wyoming. Cowboys out-rebounded them 30-19 as well. But now we're at a neutral court. This game ain't going to be played in Laramie tonight, guys. You'll never confuse Laramie with Las Vegas. That's for damn sure. Cowboys coming off a 67-65 thriller against Utah State yesterday. But listen, they closed the regular season by losing 4 of their final 5 games. I think one thing that people look at yesterday's win by 12 over Air Force and go, well, Boise didn't play that well. But just also remember that the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, and without a doubt the best team or the best player on Boise State, Derek Marks, he was saddled by foul trouble yesterday. So he only had 13 points, almost 7 under his season average. Good news is, he might be a little fresh because the foul trouble yesterday limited him to just 24 minutes of action, or 25 minutes. And the blowout win last Saturday in their home finale against Fresno, he only played 26 for a guy who was logging over 34 minutes a game the previous 3 games. That's good news. So I'm going to go with Boise tonight. The other complimentary play, this is one of those rare games, guys, that I have switched sides. Originally, I looked at the Virginia-North Carolina matchup, and I thought, I'm going to ride the Cavaliers. But then I looked at that number. It's now up to 4.5, and I've got to go with the Tar Heels. I know the Tar Heels are 1-10. Or 1-5 against top 10 teams this year. I know they did beat Louisville yesterday. And I know that Virginia, just days after blowing a double-digit second-half lead at home against Duke, went to Chapel Hill and beat North Carolina in the season's lone meeting this season. But here's the thing with the Cavaliers. Justin Anderson is not the Justin Anderson that he was when these two teams played the first time. I mean, he is Virginia's best outside shooter. He is their second leading scorer at almost 14 points a game. But after recovering from a broken finger, then he had the emergency appendectomy. Now, yesterday he returned after a 9-game absence. 12 ineffective minutes off the bench. Only took 2 shots, didn't have a bucket, only had a couple of rebounds. Yeah, it was an emotional lift, but you were playing Florida State. You should have crushed them. Now listen, you know what Virginia's going to do here. They're going to clamp down on you defensively. Number 1 scoring defense in the country, giving up just an average of 50.1 points a game. And, North Carolina, when these two met the first go-round, February 2nd, I think it was, Virginia won that game 75-64, mainly because they tightened the screws defensively in the second half of that game, held North Carolina in just 39% shooting after intermission, after the Tar Heels came out on fire to start the game, hitting over 52% of their shots in the first half. I just think tonight you're going to look at another low-scoring game, even though North Carolina is going to try to get Virginia to run. Cavaliers just don't give in that easily. I don't think this game is going to be in the 50s, but I can certainly see this being one of those 62-60, 63-60 games right around there. And I got to tell you guys, I'm going to go with North Carolina plus the points here. But how many times have I said to you that you never go against your first inclination and you never second guess yourself? But that's exactly what I'm doing here. But sometimes, it does work. And that's one of the reasons why I am not using Virginia anywhere else other than as this, or the Virginia-North Carolina game anywhere else other than this free pick. So I'm going to go with North Carolina. It's kind of like the Maryland-Indiana game. I mean, on the surface, I looked at the Terrapins and I thought, man, I like Maryland in this game. But then you look at the game and you go, wow, Terrapins got blown out at Assembly Hall. They barely won in College Park in the rematch. And this Indiana team has such a bevy of shooters. Geez, wouldn't surprise me if Maryland, winners of 7 in a row, lost that game. But that's for another day. We'll see what happens in that particular contest. But anyway, your complimentary plays, the one I really like, Boise State. The other one is going to be, again, North Carolina plus the 4.5 against Virginia. That'll do it for today. Best of luck to you guys, and I'll catch you again bright and early Saturday morning when we do this one more time.